I think a lot of people give the advice when you have a business idea, just go for it. And I do agree with that, but I also don't. And I think really do your homework and really do look into the size of the prize.
Hello and welcome to Women on Top, the weekly podcast showcasing bright and brilliant women on a mission, brought to you by me, Frankie Cotton. This week, my guest is Lucy Wright, serial entrepreneur and founder at Nice Drinks, which you may well have seen on the supermarket shelves. It's this beautiful brand of canned wine. In this episode, we talk about Lucy's experience as a serial entrepreneur. So she started her first business, Cuckoo, straight out of university in 2012, everything she learnt about that, and then how she applied those learnings to what is now Nice Drinks. We talk about how Nice Drinks has become an incredible brand, their funding journey and how they got investment to grow the business, and also generally Lucy's life as an entrepreneur, how she manages her time and her energy to make sure that she's showing up for her as well as her business. So I hope you enjoy, and here it is. Lucy, welcome to Women on Top.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me on.
Oh, I'm so pleased that we're sat here because it was just a few weeks ago that we met, wasn't it, at a founders event, and you were on the panel, and you just shared so generously your story of the 3 businesses now that you've created. So I just really knew that I wanted to pick your brains and get you on here.
Great. Well, thank you.
I wonder if we can start by talking about your first business, which is Cuckoo Bircher Muesli. So you created this straight out of university. How did it come about, and what steps did you take to build the business?
Sure. So I left university, Newcastle I was at, and I always thought that I wanted to pursue a career in interior design. So that's the route that I went down. And then I was catching up with my friend Anna, one of my best friends from school, during a time I was doing an internship in interior design. And she told me that she was writing a business plan for an on-the-go breakfast idea that her and her mum had developed over the summer. And I just got really excited inside. I just sort of had that feeling that she was onto something. So I said, well, this sounds cool. Scrap interior design. I'd quite like to do this with you. And it was just, I can't really remember it. I just remember having this burning feeling inside that that's what I should be doing. So we then both very naively went about trying to set the business up. We really didn't know where to begin. We thought it was good that the product had a 2-day shelf life. The product was a fresh, on-the-go yogurt, oat, fruit combination. And we really didn't know where to begin. So we just walked down to Whole Foods and found some brands we liked on the shelf and then gave them a ring. We found their number online and sort of started to try and ask people how we started to go about building the business. We asked for so much help for months and months, and we just continuously got pointed in the right direction, speak to this person, speak to that person. And sort of before we knew it, we were building the brand. We'd found a factory to make it, and then we launched it in 2013 into Selfridges.
Selfridges, I mean, that's a pretty big gig to start, right?
It is. It's slightly different with food. They love being the brand to launch your product. So I think it's a lot harder if you're a fashion brand to get into Selfridges. But if you're food, I'm not belittling what we did, but it's relatively easy if you've got a nice product and you're a new brand. And then that was a good springboard to go into Whole Foods and Harrods and Harvey Nichols. And then later on, the Tesco, Waitrose, Ocados of the world.
So I love how you said that you guys kind of naively threw yourself into the business. I think sometimes naivety is actually really important, because if you knew how hard it would be and all the steps it would take, you wouldn't necessarily do it. But what were some of the biggest lessons, I guess, that you learned probably quite hard and fast during that time?
Yeah, so I think naivety is a great thing because you don't really know what you're doing, so you can slightly make up the rules. And if you do something wrong, you can say, well, I didn't know, I'm a student that's just graduated. Some of the biggest things I learnt were it was quite a lot of work learning how the food industry works. We naively thought you have a great product and you just sell it to Whole Foods. But actually what we learnt was that there's a wholesaler in the middle of that. So you've got to sell it to the wholesaler who will then sell it on to Whole Foods, because obviously Whole Foods can't be buying their produce, their 800 lines from 800 different suppliers. So learning about that and then making sure you're trying to get into the wholesaler and Whole Foods at the same time. It's a lot of spinning a plate. So learning how that whole sort of sales strategy route to market piece worked was quite a challenge. And then it was really challenging finding a manufacturer to make it for us. That took months and months and endless emails to people. And then when we did start to deal with buyers, there was a challenge in them coming back to you because they've got hundreds of people emailing them trying to get their products in. And actually, they've got to focus on their current range and their current suppliers, who are obviously the ones driving the revenue in their business. So there were so many challenges, but those are just some of them that spring to mind right now.
And what are some of the considerations around having a food or drinks business?
So I think something to consider, which is also a positive thing, is you're slightly relying on other people to sell your product for you. So if you want to run a successful food and drink business in the UK, generally you need to get into the supermarkets because that's where the majority of people shop. I obviously understand now shopping habits are changing and not everyone is going to the supermarkets. But in order to grow your brand, you really heavily rely on those supermarkets. Now, those supermarkets have traditionally been very expensive businesses to do business with. It's now that we're starting to see a lot of them introduce really fantastic schemes which help smaller businesses to do business with them. The one that I'm on board at the moment with my business, other business, which we'll come on to talk about, is the Sainsbury's Future Brand Scheme. But before that started, and when I was running Cuckoo, it was difficult to get in with them as it was expensive to do business with them, which is why we see the Unilevers of the world and the P&Gs of the world really dominate in the supermarkets, because they're big businesses that have quite a lot of money, which gives you quite a lot of power. So one of the considerations, going back to answer your question, is when you do set up a food and drink business, you do quite heavily rely on the supermarkets to take a chance to list you, at the right commercial deal for your business and then go on to sell them. So if all of the supermarkets in the UK say no to you, it's quite hard to really drive a lot of growth in your business without those guys.
That's really interesting. And I guess also cash flow is another tricky one, because it's all very well and good winning the deal, but actually then having the available cash to create the product and fill the orders from the suppliers is also important.
Yeah, definitely one of the most challenging parts of running a startup is cash flow. Traditionally, supermarkets and big wholesalers have worked off 60-day payment terms, which is very challenging. I'm amazed to see how many still are, and they don't have a kind of small business payment term sort of set up. But also I'm really pleasantly surprised to see how the supermarkets, I think the majority of them, do now have a system in place to help smaller businesses with payment terms. So they're making it easier for us to do business with them, which is really good to see.
Yeah, that's really good to hear. So you sold Cuckoo in 2016, which was 4 years after you began. So what made you decide to sell your business, first of all, and then how did you go about finding a buyer and negotiating that deal?
Sure. So I think when you say you sold your business, it sounds really glamorous. And probably everyone's thinking that I'm some millionaire with my desert island, and that definitely wasn't the case with the business Cuckoo that we did sell. We had a very challenging time with Cuckoo. We had an amazing 4 years. We had a lot of highs. We worked with a lot of good retail partners, but we also had a lot of challenges, and working with a chilled product with a short shelf life isn't something personally I would choose to do again. Also, Bircher Muesli was quite a small category in the UK. When I was setting up the business, I didn't even know what a category was. So we had a challenging time with it, and we managed to sell it because we were sort of flukily in the right place at the right time, and through one of our old buyers, they mentioned a business that were interested in buying it. So we did. It wasn't a glamorous exit in any way, but I'm so grateful for everything I learned from Cuckoo, and it got me on to what I'm doing now. I don't have any regrets in it. I learned so much. But yeah, saying I sold my business I did sell it and I'm proud, but it wasn't some glamorous making loads of money. But to me, that really doesn't matter, and it still doesn't matter today.
When you start a business, often you don't necessarily think about the exit, but it's really inevitable at some stage. You're not going to be in that business forever. I think it's good to provide a narrative and a platform to talk about exits, and they're not always, as you say, the glamorous big buyouts that we all see covered in the media. There's a lot of other ways to exit a business, and it doesn't, it doesn't necessarily make it good or bad. It just is the nature of business, right?
Yeah. And when I first set up Cuckoo, I actually didn't even know what an exit was. The first time someone asked me that question, I thought they were talking about the door to get out of the So yeah, I really didn't know. Now that I'm in my third business, we do have more of a clear exit plan, which my business partner and I talk about. But during Cuckoo, I really didn't even know what it was at the beginning.
And after Cuckoo, what did you do then?
So after selling the business, I went on holiday with my family.
Good for you.
Drank quite a lot of rosé and sort of thought, what do I do now? I can't go and work for someone else. I've never worked for anyone else other than, waitressing and things when I was at university. I just don't think that would suit who I am now. So I gave myself 2 months to start doing a bit of consulting. I knew that there were a lot of food and drink brands out there that needed help with their sales strategy. They didn't know all of the stuff I'd learned in 4 years. I had some really good connections and friends in the food industry, so I put together a deck of everything I felt that I could offer a food brand around launching the business, mainly around their sales strategy, which was really my expertise. And I just got it out to every single person I'd ever met within that 4 years. Sent everyone a note saying, I moved on from Cuckoo. I'd like to start consulting. This is my deck. This is what I can do. If you know anyone that would like this help, please let me know. And really from that, the word spread. And my first couple of clients were Doisy and Dam and Olivia's Kitchen, who are quite well-known food brands in the SME section. And so once I'd done some work for them, they helped me then get more work. And sort of before I knew it, I was 6 months into it and I was really busy working with lots of different food and drink brands and sort of realised that I'd made it work.
And then the idea for Nice Drinks comes along. How did that come about?
So I was consulting for a year, and during that year I thought, this is amazing. I don't think I ever want to do anything else. I love this. And then I got into the second year, and quite typical of my personality, I got a little bit dissatisfied. Loved the people I was working with. I didn't feel I was learning anything new. I didn't feel challenged. I was building the same sales strategies day in and day out. And I decided that I'd learn even more consulting, and then on top of Cuckoo as well, I'd love to set up another business. During my consulting time, I met a guy called Jeremy who had left Propercorn, having set up their international business. He was an export consultant. Him and I met, and we decided that we'd love to set up a business together on our second time of meeting. We didn't want to be career consultants forever. We decided that we wanted to do something in food and drink, and we wanted it to be a category that was really working in America that didn't exist over here. So we decided to go over to America and see what was happening, but we actually didn't get that far because I was being millennial and mindlessly scrolling through Instagram one day in 2017, and I saw a wine in a can. And as soon as I saw it, I just had, again, something inside me like I had with Cuckoo. I then crazily for 2 weeks looked into it further, and I saw that that can had come from America, and actually there were 50 different brands in America doing canned wine. Looked into the data and saw how much the category had grown by over there. And what I really loved is that the American brands were modernising wine, bringing it into the new age. It looked very funky and very different from a wine bottle. There was none of this stuffy, old, intimidating, because wine is intimidating if you don't know what a grape is or something. And I just felt like Brits love drinking on the train, at festivals, on the beach. And I just felt this is a no-brainer. Why has no one done this before? Pitched the idea to Jeremy and he loved it. So it was from the beginning of 2018 that we really decided to go for it.
I just absolutely adore your branding, and I think it encapsulates everything you've just said there about really modernising wine and bringing it to a wider audience. How did you develop your visual identity and that tone of voice? Was there Was it useful, going back to what you were studying? You studied art and your interior design. Does that feed a lot into the brand?
Yeah, so Jeremy and I decided to go for it at the beginning of 2018. We worked on setting up the business all of last year, and we were in very fortunate positions because we were both running consulting businesses, which we were our own bosses for. So we had time to spend on Nice, which is the name of the wine brand now. And we had a little bit of money between us, and we knew that we needed to put that money into the branding side of things. So that was really where we started. So we worked with a very small agency in East London. We went to meet all of the big, expensive guys, and we just didn't really get the right vibe from them. We also didn't have that money that they would have needed to charge. So we found this really great agency, which is all made up of different freelancers, and they pick different freelancers depending on your brief. And what's amazing about them is they really focus on the strategy. So a lot of designers now just go and design something really beautiful, but then actually there's not really much strategy behind the brand. So we did lots of interesting activities with these guys, which I've never done before, but it was starting off by just thinking about doing a lot of sort of research at the American market and the UK market, and then thinking about who would drink canned wine. And then we kind of started to build a personality of this brand. So if we were a celebrity, who would we be? If we watched TV programs, what would they be? What fashion brands do we buy? And we started to kind of build out this personality, which was quite female focused. That was something we knew quite early on, that we wanted to be quite a female orientated brand. So really at the end of that had a great strategy, and then we went to the designers with that, which is where you've got the brand that you can see in front of you now. And we've got not only a great looking brand, but really great brand guidelines which talk about our values and our tone of voice and everything, so that we really know how to behave as a brand, which I think a lot of businesses maybe don't think about nowadays.
Yeah, it's a funny one because I think often people don't necessarily want to spend a huge amount of money on developing a brand identity early days. And to some degree, I can understand that point, because I think sometimes you have to practically be in your business to really understand what it's going to become. So you don't necessarily have the answers to those kinds of questions that you're talking about there straight away. But I think if you do know exactly what your vision is, then it is 100% worth investing, especially if you have a consumer brand.
Definitely. And you don't need to go and work with the big agencies. You can find amazing freelancers and amazing smaller guys, especially through social media now. You can find great people to work with that won't cost the earth.
What was different in the approach that you had for Nice Drinks versus Cuckoo? So having taken all the learnings from your first business, what was your approach this time?
I mean, it was so different. I can't believe how different it was. The main differences were with Cuckoo, we were two young girls that had an idea and just thought, we like this, everyone else is going to like this is great. We didn't even think about shelf life. We didn't think, how big is the Bircher Muesli category? We just didn't know that stuff. My approach with Nice was a lot more sort of staged and strategic, and we did a lot more research and homework. So after we discovered canned wine in America, we looked into the American data to see how big the category was over there. That was really reassuring. I then spent about 4 days walking around shops in London, independent shops, asking shopkeepers how much how many mini bottles of wine they sell. And I just from looking at the shelf and seeing how much space they took up, I thought, gosh, there must be a lot of people wanting to buy these. But then Jeremy and I went one step further, and just before we decided to put some money in, we bought a piece of data from Nielsen, who are the company that look after all of the data within the major supermarkets. And that data showed us that the mini bottle of wine category was worth £93 million in the UK alone, just in retail. That doesn't take into consideration the on-trade, so the pubs and clubs. And it was in 5% growth, which was very interesting because wine sales as a whole were flat. And it also showed us the size of the gin and tonic in a can market, which was double the size and in 17% growth. So we thought there really is a demand for this product. So buying that data not only gave us reassurance, but it helped us to raise money. And then it also helped us when we were talking to retailers. So I think that's probably the best example of what I did differently from when I set up my first business. We also ran lots of consumer groups and tastings. And, I think a lot of people give the advice when you have a business idea, just go for it. And I do agree with that, but I also don't. And I think really do your homework and really do look into the size of the prize.
I think you're so right. There's a real danger in that message of just go for it, because you're encouraging people to take a risk or to take a leap without that foundation or some sort of reassurance or stability or some kind of data and intelligence around the decisions that they're making. So yes, it's go for it in a sense that, definitely try it, but it's not saying go for it without taking all of these steps and being very considered about how you're going to get there.
Yeah, and don't just ask your family if the idea is good. Really go out there and ask a lot of people. And we asked a lot of people. We asked people in the wine industry who said we were absolutely crazy, which makes me laugh now because canned wine seems to be really taking off. You're never going to get everyone on board, but yeah, definitely ask other people other than your family and definitely do your homework.
Talk to us about your funding journey and how you got investment.
So at the very beginning, Jeremy and I were considering doing a bit of a raise before we had anything, a name or any listings. And we just had a gut feel that wasn't the right way to go. It would have been hard to get really any decent kind of valuation before you even got a name. And we decided that we were in a really lucky position where we were both running consulting businesses that were profitable. Let's put some of our own money in. Let's show investors when we do raise that we've got skin in the game. Let's use that money to get the branding up and running, to get some listings under our belt, and then let's go and raise money. And that was one of the best decisions we've made in the business. So we funded the business last year. We funded mainly the branding side of things, and then we funded things like going to France to the vineyards to, meet the wine producers. So that's things like an aeroplane flight and a hotel. So not huge amounts of money. And then once we had the branding done, we were able to meet retailers. We also had the wine decided at that point, so we could take them bottles of wine saying, this is what the can's going to look like. This is the wine that's going to go in it. And we were able to get listings lined up, and we managed to get Sainsbury's on board and lined up to launch us really quite early on. So we were then, when we came to a time where we actually had to produce it, we had Sainsbury's wanting it and some other people, we then raised money. So that was last September. So we went to investors with a Sainsbury's listing with a great looking brand, which was just effectively a PowerPoint presentation. And yeah, we raised money. We raised £300,000. And that enabled us to do our first production run. It enabled Jeremy and I to go full-time on the business and launch this year. We've got about 15 different investors on board, some people from the food industry and others not.
Were they your personal contacts, or how did you find the right investors for you?
So it was Jeremy that really led on the fundraise, and he did a fantastic job. We'd go to most of the meetings together, but he really took the lead on that, whilst I took the lead on getting listings lined up for us. So our investors are made up of people we might have worked with before. The two founders of Propercorn, Cassandra and Ryan, who Jeremy used to work for, are two of our investors, for example, and then also a combination of family and friends.
And how long did it take in total?
It took about 2 weeks.
2 weeks?
Yeah.
That's so quick.
It is quite quick, and I feel like a bit of a knob saying that it took 2 weeks.
Well, I mean, it is what it is. Like, don't worry about that.
But yeah, I mean, I think it was so quick because we could prove that the category was working in America. We could prove that the ready-to-drink category was big in the UK. We had a really great-looking brand to show people. Jeremy and I had experience. We'd both been in the food industry for 10 years combined. I'd launched a business before, and we had Sainsbury's lined up. So, we had some quite nice ticked boxes, which is why I think we found it didn't take too long to raise money.
That's such a brilliant story. I love that. But yeah, it was definitely the coming together, as you say, of all of those elements in one place then enabled that to happen quite quickly. So what has been the most impactful investment or activity that has helped grow Nice Wine and increase your sales?
So I guess this one doesn't really help grow our sales, so I'll sort of answer it separately. But one of the most impactful investments we made is actually two things I've already mentioned. Buying that data at the very beginning, and then Jeremy and I investing our own money in the branding. In terms of growing our sales and growing our business, investing in our team has been really important. We are now a team of 4. We've got an amazing girl called Erin, who's our head of brand, who was previously at Candy Kittens, and we've got an amazing girl called Charlie who works with me on the sales, and she was at Jimmy's Iced Coffee before and Propercorn. So really investing in having the right people in place to really drive your business forward, I would say, is my answer to that question. And then also Jeremy and I investing in our relationship, having a co-founder is sort of like being in a marriage, and we're very lucky that we have a great relationship. We get on incredibly well. We, say when there's a problem or when one of us thinks something, and we generally get to the same answer together. And I think it's important to work on your relationships with anyone in your business, but particularly if you have a co-founder.
Definitely. It's a topic that comes up on this podcast quite frequently, is around co-founder relationships and how to really maintain and foster the health of that relationship, which is what you're saying here. How have you adapted to life as an entrepreneur? And I say that knowing that, really that's been almost your whole career, has been as a business owner and being in charge of your own destiny in that way. Has it been tricky? Have you had any challenges, for you as an individual in terms of making sure that you're looking after you and that you're getting what you need as well as the business is getting what it needs from you?
Yeah, so it's really great, and I feel so lucky to be running my own businesses and always having run my own businesses. And I've definitely had challenges at times, but in this third business, I do definitely feel, I think it might be because I'm a bit older and a bit more mature and experienced. With Cuckoo and my consulting, I'd slightly stay in the office too late and didn't have that really good balance of work life. But with Nice now, because I'm more experienced and maybe because I can do things more quickly, because I more know what I'm doing, I feel pretty balanced. I have a really good work-life balance. I do all the usual, go to yoga, exercise, eat healthy food, but I still go out and I'm still sometimes hungover 1 or 2 days. And I think having that balance is really important. I'm also really good, which is something I didn't do before, at turning my phone onto airplane mode at night, not checking emails, when I get into bed, and it can wait till the morning. I'm sure something so disastrous hasn't happened in the night that the business is going to suddenly stop. So I have become in this business just more conscious at small things like that I can do to make myself happier and then make myself, work harder and more efficiently when I'm in the office.
As you say, a part of that is definitely maturing, and it's almost like a rite of passage that you have to go through, which is making all of the mistakes, pushing yourself too hard, going through the moments of burnout to then realise, okay, I know what my personal limits are and I know how to create the right environment.
Yeah, definitely. And I think with Cuckoo, if something would go wrong, I would freak out and panic. But now I think that's also down to Jeremy, who's the most calm person you've ever met. He never freaks about anything. And I think that's also had quite a good effect on me. And business is about fighting fires here and there. And it's actually those fires that help you to grow and learn. And you can always find a solution for something at the end of the day. So definitely a lot more zen in this business.
And how do you see your future, both with Nice and then, looking beyond that, I suppose?
Yeah, so we are really only at the beginning of Nice. We've only been trading since March this year. It does feel like there's an appetite in the UK for canned wine. We've got some really big plans and ambitions for next year with our current range, but then also some new products that we're bringing in. So I see my focus for the next 5 or so years as to build Nice, and ultimately we would like to become the UK's #1 canned wine brand. We do have plans for an exit strategy, and if everything was to go to plan, eventually in the future when I'm maybe not as involved with Nice, I would definitely like to do something around helping the next generation of entrepreneurs. I feel like I've been given so much help. I'm very much someone that asks for help, but there's definitely more I'd like to give back.
I can't believe that you guys have only been going since March this year. I think that's amazing. I was just telling you before we started recording that I was in Sainsbury's at Paddington Station. I think it was Paddington. And having just met you, I was walking past the aisle and Nice was on the shelf. And I just thought, yes, totally nailed it. Makes me think, what was even the point of those stupid little wine bottles? Like, they're just so impractical.
Well, you can't drink them on the go as well because you need to have a plastic glass, cup. So I don't know how many more years they'll be around for.
Hopefully not long if you've got anything to do with it.
Yeah.
So, Lucy, thank you so much for being so open and sharing your story with us. It's just been great talking with you. I wondered if there's anything you'd like to leave us on, perhaps some business advice or something really impactful that you've learned that you'd like to pass on to the listeners.
Yeah, so other than all of the things I've mentioned, the research and everything, I think that there are 2 other things. Definitely really asking people for help. I would not be where I am today if I didn't ask people for help. I still, on a weekly basis, go and meet other brands to give them things and learn from them. So anyone you can ask, just ask and don't be afraid. And always just make sure you are polite and you say thank you. And if you have samples, you send them to them after to say thanks, because that really does go a long way. And then my second thing is, if you're in a business like mine where you're selling to the supermarkets or the wholesalers, really investing in your relationship with them, because people buy into people. I'm in the alcohol world now and I'm competing with some of the huge guys, the Diageos, the big businesses with lots of money. And I know that lots of our suppliers and customers like to meet us because we've got a story, and I don't have the big checkbook that Diageo has, but I have other things to give, and really focusing on building that relationship with everyone you work with and investing in that will make your business go further in the long run, I think.
Great advice. Thank you so much. And finally, how can we find you, follow you and support Nice?
So we are drink_nice on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. We're probably most active on Instagram. We take it super seriously. And then I'm on Instagram too, if you're interested in following everything pink and interior design. I think I'm an open profile. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm Lucy K. Wright.
Brilliant. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you all for listening to Women on Top, the podcast. You can join in the conversation online using the hashtag #TheWhatPod and tagging us at @TheWhatPod on Twitter and Instagram. And you can find all the details about our wonderful guests in the show notes. Support for Women on Top comes from Entail, the Webby award-winning interactive podcast platform. Entail is changing the game when it comes to podcasting through its rich visual experience. Give it a go and download today from the App Store. And don't forget to rate, review and subscribe on your favourite podcast app and spread the word. See you next week.